protest being held outside of the office of the Prime Minister this morning. The Attorney General shutting down claims made by those protesters, and the Grand Lucayan has 3 solid offers. Good evening, everyone. I'm Tyler Simonet with your JCN News for this Tuesday, April 5th. Lincoln Bain, leader of the Coalition of Independents, gathered with a contingent of other Bahamians just outside the office of the Prime Minister Tuesday morning in protest of alleged government-sanctioned deforestation here in the capital and on certain family islands by Haitian migrants in the Cowpen and Carmichael Road areas. Mr. Bain and company, with passports in hand, are also demanding access to Crown land that they say all Bahamians have a right to.
We are out here for justice. We are out here because we are concerned for the well-being of Bahamians in general, and for particular Bahamians who are now residing and farming in the area of Carmichael Road in the northern area that somehow the government is calling the Lincoln Bain area. We are concerned because contrary to a court order preventing any interference with any unregulated community in New Providence and Abaco, that the Attorney General and the Minister of Environment and Natural Resources has threatened that he will send cease and desist orders in contrary to that order, and he will also prosecute persons in those areas. We are concerned for that. That goes against the law, that goes against the rule of law, and we are willing to take this to court if we have to, even as far as the Privy Council.
Like many other Bahamians, Mr. Bain and those gathered have voiced grievances stemming from comments made by Minister of Environment and Natural Resources Vaughn Miller last week, claiming that it is largely Bahamians involved in this illegal coal mining. Mr. Bain claims that he has received and released a report from the Director of Forestry, who claims that in the past she and her team have made significant attempts to stop the deforestation in the Cowpen Road area. However, they were met with opposition by an unnamed political figure.
We want to make sure that moving forward that everything happens in a proper way. And so we want to make sure that no illegal immigrants or Bahamians burn our forests. We are going to enforce that. We believe that up to this time, the government has been incapable of enforcing that. And hence, you can look and you can see that the Cowpen Road area, we have lost all of our pine trees in that area. It's gone. Right. We didn't even notice that it was disappearing right before our eyes. Now they are moving over to the northern side of Carmichael Road, where there's 3,000 acres in the well fields. And we have to protect that. And so since one of the forestry officials came on live radio and said that every time she tries to enforce it against these immigrants, that she gets a call to stand down, we're going to help the government. And this is one of the reasons we want to meet with the government, to let them know that we are Bahamians. We don't want to do anything adverse to our country. We don't want to hurt our country. We are here peacefully. This is not a demonstration. There are no placards here, nothing. We came to set an appointment to see them, to let them know that we are here, capable and willing to volunteer.
While the contingent was granted access to the office of the Prime Minister, the press were forced to leave the building and were unable to ascertain what allowances were made for Mr. Bain and the others. Our news team will continue to follow this developing story as information becomes available. Attorney General Ryan Pinder shutting down claims made by individuals tampering with and claiming Crown land as their own. This group of individuals claim they're protected by a shantytown injunction that was upheld in the Supreme Court back in 2018. The AG tells reporters this morning, however, that that particular injunction deals with the demolition of shantytowns in Abaco in violation of the Building Control Act and the method in which structures on the land were built.
That is entirely different. And if you read the ruling, in fact, I read it yesterday because I anticipated the question. If you read the ruling, it's clear the ruling applies with respect to building codes, and the ruling applies with respect to shanty towns in Abaco. In fact, the injunction, the attempt to expand the injunction throughout the Bahamas was denied. So I think that it's very clear that that ruling is inapplicable to what we're dealing with here in Nassau recently, which is illegal land clearing in violation of the Forestry Act and trespass upon Crown land without permission.
He adds that the government's proceeding with a cease and desist order, the draft of which he's currently reviewing.
That will be posted to give everybody adequate notice of the intent of the government to protect its crown land against criminal trespass. And then we'll give everybody an opportunity to leave the land. That's crown land. If they want to go through the proper application process with the Office of the Prime Minister and the Department of Lands and Surveys, we invite them to do that. But to trespass upon somebody else's land without permission and to start building structures, you wouldn't tolerate that on your land, would you?
As for a timeline on that cease and desist order, the AG says he expects that it will be posted before next week's cabinet meeting. Asked how long the government will give those individuals on the land, Mr. Pinder says this.
A realistic time frame. Look, we're not in the business of being unrealistic with people, right? That's not what we do. So it will be an adequate notice to get off the land. So let me ask you a question. If you had a piece of property in the island, for say, and you hadn't gone back to the island because of COVID and whatever other reasons for a number of years, and you go back to see your piece of property that you have saved up for, or that you look to build your vacation home or your second home, or you maybe even retire there, and somebody has a structure on that property, what would you do? You would pursue your legal rights to protect your property and ensure that person was no longer on your property, and that is all we're doing. We're protecting the crown land of the Bahamas from illegal trespass.
He adds that if the other parties wish to engage attorneys to try to get an injunction from the government proceeding, that is their right. Mr. Pinder says the government is not trying to restrict anyone's right to judicial process. He is just enforcing the right of the government and protecting its land and property. The Department of Forestry is currently at the site trying to update a report previously made. That report will outline how many residents and illegal structures are currently on the land. He says he's expecting that report to be available soon. There are 3 substantial offers for the Grand Lucayne Resort, narrowed down from 5 credible bidders, and the government is at the moment engaged in discussions with them. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Tourism, Investments and Aviation Chester Cooper giving reporters an update this morning at the Office of the Prime Minister just before the weekly cabinet meeting. DPM Cooper contends that either of these offers, in his view, would be acceptable to the government and the Bahamian people.
We are at a stage in the discussions on the Grand Lucayne Resort where we have 3 substantial offers. Either of these offers would be, in my view, acceptable to the government, acceptable to the Bahamian people. We are at the moment engaged with all 3 of them. We are seeking the best outcome for the Bahamian people. I've always said that it will be a combination of the size of the check, the vision for the resort, and a shared vision for Grand Bahama.
Requests for proposals for the purchase of the resort closed on March 2nd. Late last month, the Deputy Prime Minister told reporters that there were promising proposals, credible bidders at the table with a master plan already for the hotel. DPM Cooper says he anticipates that by the end of April, the government would have determined the sole candidate that will advance into an exclusive contract.
We want an expedited transaction, and we want to ensure that there is real interest in the redevelopment of the resort itself. Grand Bahama needs jobs, and we anticipate that during the construction phase there will be 500 to 1,000 jobs in that phase, and we are anticipating that the construction phase will likely take 18 months. We are desirous of a phased approach so that we do not lose the rooms that we have at the Lighthouse Point, and we're able to retain the employment of the persons at the Lighthouse Point whilst the other stages of the resort is being developed.
Back in August of 2018, the Minister administration purchased the hotel for $65 million. In March of 2020, Royal Caribbean and the ITM Group signed a heads of agreement with the government to purchase the hotel and redevelop the Freeport Harbor. Last December, it was announced that the deal had been cancelled. Deputy Prime Minister Cooper says there are a lot of moving parts and the government is still cautiously optimistic about the outcome for the Grand Lucayne.
Let me say that we are about $200 million invested in this property, and we are going to do our best to ensure that we get the best possible outcome for the Bahamian people. You would recall that the last deal was in the region of $65 million. And all I can say is that we're going to do the best possible job for the Bahamian people.
So more than 65 million.
We're going to do the best possible job for the Bahamian people. That's all I can say at this time.
While Minister Cooper declined to give a figure that the government is seeking for the sale of the Grand Lucayan, he recently noted that the government has invested $150 million into the property. Meantime, tourism investments and aviation officials announcing the launch of Phase 1 of the Public-Private Partnership Initiative for several airports throughout the Bahamas. Deputy Prime Minister Cooper, speaking to the Grand Bahama International Airport, says the PPP process has been open since March 28th for the management, operations, financing, and design of the airport. The government is seeking experienced and qualified private sector partners for the redevelopment of the GBIA with the objective of revitalizing Grand Bahama's economy. The tourism minister says he anticipates it will be a 30-day process, although his ministry is contemplating making it a 45-day process to comply with procurement laws and international best practice.
I think our initial design for this to be a 30-day process demonstrates our commitment to the people of Grand Bahama that we want this process to move swiftly. And we are going to monitor it and ensure that, again, we get the best possible outcome. The residents, as well as the tourists and investors, deserve a world-class airport in Grand Bahama, and we are hoping to be able to deliver that for them.
The DPM, in a statement released today, says the government wants to attract big investors to the island of Grand Bahama and see the second city return to its glory days. He adds that in order to do that, first impressions of Grand Bahama need to be good ones. He says redeveloping, maintaining, and operating the Grand Bahama International Airport is top priority. And a man is dead and another is in hospital following a double shooting here in the capital Monday night. Police say they were called to Winder's Terrace off Malcolm Road sometime after 9 p.m. There they met the body of an adult male lifeless. Police press liaison officer Superintendent Audley Peters fills us in with the details.
Our officers were dispatched on Malcolm Bend off Malcolm Road East. On their arrival at a residence, they met two males lying in the doorway, both of them suffering from injuries as a result of gunshot. EMS technicians visited the scene. Following their assessment, one of the males was deemed to have no signs of life. The other was transported to the hospital where he's being attended to by the medical practitioners. The details of this incident are somewhat sketchy, and so at this time we will reserve comments on what and how this event occurred.
Superintendent Peters making an appeal to residents in the community who may have any information on this latest homicide to contact the police at 502-9991 or 2, or call the Southeast Police Station and speak with the officer in charge. Now, with a number of murders in recent weeks, Superintendent Peters provided an update on a homicide that occurred 2 weeks ago.
I'd also like to report at this time that on the incident that happened, or the homicide that occurred on 27th of March, which was 2 weeks past, that matter, we would have charged 2 suspects, and they are expected to be arraigned before the magistrate court tomorrow morning. And our Operation Ceasefire, with the assistance and information from members of the public, we would have arrested a suspect yesterday for murder and possession of the firearm that was found during the execution of that arrest. We are resolute in our efforts as we combat these incidents. Our officers are dedicated to the task, and they're committed to completing each matter with the thorough investigation that all these incidents are required.
Investigations into last night's homicide continue. You're watching JCN News. Stay with us.